So welcome to all of you who are joining us live, nice and promptly already. For anyone else who is watching later on the replay, thank you so much for being here. I am selfishly very excited for this conversation. So I'm so glad for those of you who are able to join in as well. For the next little bit, we'll be doing an interview with Dr. Mitch Abrams. You can see him here on screen with me. And he's going to be discussing the emerging research on psychophysiology, heart brain entrainment, and neuroplasticity as it relates to personal transformation. So you saw when you signed up for the webinar, that was the topic for today, was the science of transformation. And so you're going to hear us chatting about things like the latest science on the heart-brain connection and how to access higher levels of consciousness, the ways in which emotions and state of mind impact your mental faculties and your ability to perform. So something that's very important to all of us as clinicians. And then also how the science of interconnectedness can shift corporate and community environments to promote a culture of growth and transformation. And again, for us as a community of practitioners, I think this is really, really key. So welcome, Dr. Abrams. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be with you.
So we'll jump right into it. If you don't mind, you were just telling me before we started a little bit about your own path into this field. So are you able to give everyone just a couple of those insights, since you are a physician by training, what brought you into the world of coherence?
Well, it really started my first year of independent medical practice as a radiologist. I was diagnosed with a heart condition that required open heart surgery. So very quickly, I experienced the model of medicine from a very different perspective and realized that our health education system is very narrow in scope. There's something fundamentally missing in our, model of healing. And layered on with the fact that shortly after returning to work, I was appointed chief of the department. So I got to, appreciate and understand and experience the system of medicine and realize, wow, it's extremely outdated, not sustainable. So this catapulted me in a completely new direction, in a direction of really deep research into other approaches to health and wellness. And this led me to India, where I spent a lot of time looking at a whole discipline of science that is just not included in our, Western model of education, be it healthcare or otherwise. And it's this science of mind, the science of connection, science of consciousness. And this really helped not only my own healing journey, but it helped me make sense of what I do every day in Western medicine. I mean, as a radiologist, we put people into a machine called an MRI, and we can non-invasively dissect the human body like a loaf of bread, all because we understand energy, and we are energetic beings. We are vibrations of light. And so when I'm looking at an MRI of someone's brain, I'm literally looking at the light of an individual's atoms, which make the molecules, which create the cells, which ultimately create the superorganism called you. And so we're at this beautiful moment now where Western medicine and research have been taking an active approach to look at not just, shifting from disease and pathophysiology to looking at proactive and preventative medicine. These techniques, this is a true science. And we're in this moment where science and, dare I say, spirituality, or, really the science of connection, these worlds are now connecting. It's and this really encapsulates, the science of compassion, the science of kindness, and really this interconnectedness that is the truth of our human nature. So this is, all of this has really informed, I guess, my approach to healing. And, now it's a matter of really educating people on energy in this new perspective and creating a system for people who learn how to intelligently manage their own energy, both individually and collectively.
I love that. So you mentioned you are still practicing as a radiologist. That's correct.
Yes.
But I think I saw your mission statement on your website is to support and promote a more holistic model of healthcare. So are you able to give us some idea about how you're able to focus on that education and science within that Western medical model?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've created a social enterprise designed for social impact. And our mission is to create healthy minds and thriving communities through the power of science, technology, and art. So if you look at next gen health, we have three buckets. The first bucket is education and certification. And ultimately, we bring context to what Einstein famously said: everything is energy. And he also said that the future of medicine is the medicine of frequencies. So these certifications not only help provide a new framework for understanding energy, but like I said, we also create this system so that people can learn to intelligently manage their own energy and understand that interconnectedness so that we can synergize collectively. So, and this, just to share that this is now accredited with the Royal College of Physician Surgeons. So physicians are receiving CMEs and continuing education credits based on this understanding of energy. A big paradigm shift is happening right now. So that's bucket number one: education and discovering new perspectives. Bucket number two is our social impact stream, which is called Rad Art. And Rad Art was actually my thesis for a program based out of Stanford Medical School called the Center for Compassion and Altruism Research and Education, CCARE. And essentially, Rad Art is a system, a sustainable system for social impact. So artists who are certified in understanding and appreciation of energy and interconnection, once certified, they can now join me on stage for any of the keynotes or education programs that we do. And they are tasked with capturing the energy of our collective learning and healing together in the moment, in their art, in real time. And then corporations and art enthusiasts or philanthropists sponsor or buy the art, raising money not just for the artist but also providing mental health and resilience programs, these certifications for schools and communities in need. So we can now transform our conversations and these moments of learning and healing together into tangible value, creating cycles of compassion for those who need it most. And every piece of art is then publicly installed with a QR code that shares that story of that cycle of compassion. So now we've created, a bit of a revenue stream that can help support and provide mental health and well-being. The third bucket is research. And we are about to start a really amazing and interesting research study looking at heart coherence, how it affects mental health and burnout rates among healthcare learners, so first year medical students. And what's fascinating that's unique about this research is that we have access to students internationally around the world that will not only learn self-care, but we can bring people together as a community, and we have the technology to witness heart synchronization, that physiologic coupling that comes about through intentions of compassion and sending love and kindness to others. We actually synchronize our biorhythms and our nervous systems. So this is now measurable. So we're able to now identify, how self-care is a form of social activism and bringing people together. And these medical students are not only practicing for themselves, but it becomes now an opportunity for them to share with colleagues in the communities they serve. So this now is something that we can not only deliver and deploy and disseminate these opportunities for improved mental well-being, but we're also studying in real time. And through the Rad Art, we can begin to discuss it, and more importantly, we begin to celebrate this new perspective of who we are individually and collectively.
Wow. So I have to respond to that and just say that's amazing how you have set up. I love those analogy of the three buckets with the education and the social activism and the research. It stands out to me so much what a huge impact you must be having. And like you said, how people are then able to take this even further once they've learned it themselves. I do wonder, and if you could share with everyone listening, how does this work relate to your original training in radiology, if at all, and how does that relate to what you're currently focused on teaching and educating on?
Well, that's a great question. I think to think about it almost like an onion, there's so many layers to that. Um, I think in general, the work fundamentally, when we learn about the science of heart and we begin to understand the science, it brings more meaning to the practice, and it creates more power, a greater effect. And this all results to just improved learning, improved engagement. So as a resident, look, over 50% of medical residents at the time of their graduation, when they start independent medical practice, they're already experiencing burnout, which is itself a clinical diagnosis. So how does this work relate? Just in the general terms, it helps people heal and stay engaged and be maintain, a grounded state so that they can be the best version of themselves showing up. The work also, interestingly, as a radiologist, if we start to look at energy, even Nikola Tesla said, if you wish to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, vibration, frequency. And when we look at radiology, the fact that we are, using sound waves with ultrasound or magnetic radiation to dissect the human body, all because we are energetic beings at the fundamental core of who we are. It creates just a broader perspective. It opens the mind. Your consciousness is now aware of the multiple dimensions of our capacity for healing and for thriving. So for me, I think it's, at a deep level, the quantum physics that helps us do unbelievable things, like magical. And, if we had to explain an MRI to our grandparents, it would be just magical. But yet this understanding of quantum mechanics and the fundamentals of, the building blocks of the universe and space-time has profound implications to our own health and healing. And as we as a society transition from this old paradigm of biomedical science, where we think that we're just made up of these little atoms of bits, and that my bits and your bits are separate from each other, and that my bits is experiencing a world separate from myself, we're starting to understand that's completely not true. And if all of our technology is now shifted towards, understanding and leveraging quantum physics, we as a human species we're at this point where our consciousness is getting to a point where we can begin to access and understand this energy so that we can access our own human technology, our own potential. And all of this now is absolutely measurable objectively. And we can look at frequencies of energy through heart rhythms and brain waves that actually demonstrate these, altered states of consciousness that everybody can access. Everybody can. And that, again, is not just, Dr. John Kabat-Zinn's shown that, we can heal up to 4 times faster when we use that mental muscle, right? And so the implications are just so vast when you begin to think just a slight shift in understanding energy from a slightly new perspective. Things become more clear, and it helps you tap into your potential. And even more so, that ability to physiologically couple with others, that we can now measure what that does to our relationships, friends and family, colleagues. So again, when I went, if I knew this before I had my heart surgery, I would have insisted that every surgeon in that room, every nurse, the anesthetist, everybody in that room, I want them to synchronize. I want them to sync up. I want everybody to get into that peak mindset so that it's a well-oiled machine. And I believe that that science of peak potential is not only good for patient care, but it is fundamental for the sustainability of our model of medicine, because we need to deal with this burnout epidemic. So it's a fascinating, it's a simple solution. The hardest part really now is the value system, needs to change within the model, because the science is there. You can't, you can't ignore it anymore. And, to ignore it, I think you become part of the problem, part of the disease pathophysiology that we're experiencing um, today.
Are you able to dive a little bit more specifically into some of those philosophies and perspectives that you hold? I know the topic that we have sort of used to frame today's conversation is the science of transformation. So can you talk a little bit more about what that philosophy is to you?
Sure. Um, so again, there's many layers to this, but in real simple terms, when we're stressed and we're anxious, our nervous system, our specifically the autonomic arm of our nervous system, which is comprised of both the sympathetic and parasympathetic, which is essentially rest and relax, or the fight or flight. Um, when we're stressed, those two arms of the autonomic nervous system are are out of balance, very irregular. It's almost like driving your car with both feet on the gas and brake same time, and it really destroys your car, which is your body, and is completely inefficient. You're sucking away your life energy when you're in that state. And certainly science is now clear that over 90% of disease that we're experiencing today, much of it stems from that. It's chronic stress, and we know what prolonged cortisol levels, and all of this breaks down the, the body. So when we learn how to consciously create a coherent state, meaning you can put your nervous system back into balance. This is the state of almost like feeling like you're in the flow of life. um, that rejuvenating state of expansiveness that you may experience. This is something that we can practice, we can cultivate. And when we do, just like going to the gym for a month and working out your muscles, and you'll experience changes in your physiology and in your physique, practicing mental push-ups or mental exercises, cultivating coherence, does the exact same. We know that it changes the structure of the brain. It shrinks, the amygdala and parts of the brain that are less evolved, that are focused on fear, and which is unfortunately hyperactive in this moment in time. So by releasing that trigger, it creates a greater expansiveness, so that we can be more resilient, and we're not going to physiologically react to stress in the same way. So by cultivating these states, you're now not as affected by the world as you once were. And it now opens up the doors for possibility. You're starting to recognize things around you perhaps that you may not have when you're stressed, hyper focused on issues and hyper focused on self. Once you begin to create that coherence, you begin to expand your heightened state of awareness and expansiveness. And this is of no extra benefit, by the way. This is purely just the side effect of you are now optimizing the frequency of your system. And when you balance your nervous system, the heart becomes like a conductor of a symphony for your body, so that every organ is essentially a musician. And you can imagine, without a conductor, if you're in the audience, all the musicians playing music on their own time, it sounds very incoherent, like noise. But the moment the conductor shows up, all of the organs begin to synchronize. So the music, now you're hearing this coherent, beautiful music. So much of what we need to do is, once we learn about the heart and we learn how it's connected to the nervous system, and there's this certain system and feedback loop in place, we can learn to disrupt this cycle, this pattern, and create new systems, new cycles, which ultimately can shift your default mode from incoherent states to a coherent state. And and furthermore, what's really exciting is that with the way that we approach heart coherence, the techniques are very versatile. In fact, they're so versatile that I could be doing it right now to maintain my sense of connection to you. Even if you say something to me that might trigger me or upset me, I'm doing something that nobody else perhaps would even recognize that I'm doing, but yet this is a technique of consciousness that helps me stay so connected with you and engage in this conversation, to speak through heart, as opposed to allowing my mind to take over and maybe say something I might have regretted or whatnot. So that, we, it's fascinating, but when people learn a system to empower themselves, it's a beautiful thing to watch and experience.
I'm curious, I know you have some experience with holistic nutritionists in your life. So us as a group of nutritionists, um, do you see any specific ways that these techniques for cultivating and maintaining heart coherence would be able to impact an individual as a nutritionist, either personally or within their work as a clinician?
Absolutely, 100%. So first, I would break it down into three levels. The first is just absolute self-care. Anything that empowers a clinician to be the best version of themselves, you are now showing up for your client in the best version. So that's number one. But number two, I have a belief that if if you're engaging with somebody by taking, even if it's for 30 seconds, a moment to connect, understanding that there is energy. We may not be able to see it with our eyes, but if we take a moment, we can feel it. And when you create a deep sense of connection, that sense that you're part of something bigger than yourselves, and you're showing up for each other for dedication of improved well-being, you're going to create a deeper sense of connection that ultimately leads to more compliance, a better degree of communication without any shame or the drama or even just unconscious biases. It just creates a much better engagement. So for the client, so that's I think powerful for a clinician for improved outcomes. But I think the bigger thing also is that we understand that when you go through this certification, it goes through 4 steps. Energy 101, then you learn how to energize yourself, then you learn how to synergize, but then you begin, the last part is, how do we emerge realigned? When we now understand who we are and our connection to each other, by practicing and bringing awareness to energy and our connection, it's also recognizing a global essence, a global identity that we're all part of. And this is absolutely core to the biopsychosocial model of medicine that you go to any medical conference now, everyone's talking about biopsychosocial medicine, the BPS model. And as a nutritionist, you get to be part of that primary, cultivation of helping people realize that, yes, we are part of something bigger than self, because this becomes part of, a conversation that's happening not just at top levels for CMEs, but it's also with our engaging with general public, so top down and bottom up. And so no matter what type of client or individual that you're working with, by engaging with heart, doing it through a heart-centered approach, and this isn't poetic, I'm saying this is a scientific, a vibrational frequency, appreciation of synchronizing. We, locally and globally, are creating a healthier environment.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that.
And,
Thank you so much for sharing that.
and just to share also, the other thing that I when I was really looking forward to this conversation, because many, when we think about the atoms and the vibrations of light and the atoms making up molecules, well, many of these molecules that create our body are the foods that we're taking in. So from an energetic perspective, there's this whole other kind of interesting layer that once you step out of the box of just thinking yourself as human, when we start thinking deeply about who we are in an energetic term, it creates now like a new way to perhaps engage the old conversations that again can further perhaps reach a broader audience so that they get better interested in what they're eating, what they're thinking, and just their overall approach to life.
Yeah, I love that connection of thinking about the energy of what we're eating as well. And that's the age-old adage, right? That you are what you eat. But it's so much deeper than that and bigger than that, just that simplicity on its face. And it's amazing that folks like you are diving into that type of research. So we will have the data and the understanding to really see that some of this traditional wisdom, if you will, really does have scientific basis as well.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And
So,
and
sorry,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say the science is so fascinating. Like it it really inspired that. The fascinating aspect is that this knowledge inspires. That's what we've noticed in all of our workshops, is that when people walk away, they're so inspired with the opportunities that they see for themselves and their communities.
So, you obviously you are a physician. We've mentioned that it isn't that often that we've seen MDs coming out to talk on these sorts of topics. So, but you also mentioned the biopsychosocial model and that how that's a big conversation right now within the Western medical system. So, I wonder how your medical colleagues have received this information, both historically and currently. How does that work in your professional circles?
Well, that's a great question. Um, I would say it's been an interesting journey, to be honest, because early on I realized, I kind of once I found my heart, and keep in mind the heart has its own brain. I mean, this the essentially the same brain cells that and proteins and neuropeptides in our skull make up our brain also sits on our heart. So there was a moment, as I began tuning into my heart and listening to my heart, it was clear. I just started sharing information, and I started giving talks and this is dating back, almost 10 years ago now. And it was obvious that there was about a split, 50% in the room, were really engaged and felt like, hey, there's something here, like, what is this, and wanted to learn more. um, and then there's the other 50% that were very confused, like they just didn't appreciate, like, the practicality of neuroplasticity. Whereas now you can imagine, like, sure, of course, everybody is understanding that science and its relevance and implications to health and wellness. So over the last 10 years, there has been a massive shift in interest. I think part of it is related, obviously, with the COVID, and the mental health issues that have stemmed. I wouldn't say stem from that, but were exacerbated by the pandemic. And there are journal articles in the medical, journals that are discussing our burnout rates, our suicide rates amongst physicians that are higher than the communities we serve. So there's now this kind of shift where people in the system of healing and medicine, they're recognizing that we are not superhuman. We're not, infallible to anything. You know, we are part of the community that we're serving. So there's this openness of wanting to talk about it, and this the overall the field of physics and quantum physics, and it's now penetrating the collective consciousness. And as a radiologist, again, it creates, when having a conversation with a physician, the bottom line always comes down to, like, sir or ma'am, like, if you don't, I understand this is not your field, but you send your patients every day for an MRI or for a CT scan. I mean, do you understand how that technology works? And obviously vast majority just have no clue. And there we go. It's like, is your ego going to prevent you now to send your patients to our department? Would your ego prevent you from learning this new chapter in medicine that ultimately is here for you? This is good for you. And in fact, the best part about all of this is that nobody has to listen to me. Nobody has to listen to critics. If you just practice for 5 minutes for yourself, and you made a real effort, undoubtedly you will experience something within yourself. You will begin to touch something, and you'll know that that is part of your true human nature, how to deepen the human experience. And so ultimately, now we're at this interesting age of can there be a new level of accountability even within the medical community, that if you're not caring for yourself, well, are you really in a position to best care for others? And certainly the science of compassion shows how important it is to provide more heart into healthcare. I mean, the studies show that, having a compassionate encounter pre-op reduces opioid use by over 50%. Your pain perception drops by 50% by simply having a compassionate connection with somebody. And you have that physiologic coupling. So this is, if we're talking about the meat of medicine, this is the next chapter. And Einstein was full on. I mean, he was the insight. Future medicine is a medicine of frequencies, and this will help bring these worlds together. And the shift that we're seeing in doctors has been amazing and interesting. And now we're being invited to national conferences talking about it. But even more so, the medical students are so excited. I mean, we now have a team of medical students wanting to do this type of research, get into this work, um, and really making change in systems in our approach. And ultimately, as I said before, we need to shift the value systems within our models of healing and whatnot. Yeah.
So, given some of those gaps that you've identified within the healthcare system and the progression of research, and even like you said, over the last few years, this period of intense isolation for a lot of people, it really does seem like the natural remedy is more of this connectedness and these concepts that you're teaching about. So, how do you see this being integrated into our systems, and how are you focusing on improving the healthcare system with these concepts?
Well, one way is I believe that this is essential curriculum for first year, health learners, be it medical students, nursing. I mean, any field really. I think this is a curriculum that should be, provided, and this can create, I think, big change from bottom up and top down in a very, in a short time frame. So that's one approach of how we can address this topic and create change. But I also see there's a lot of power in when you use art and music as a tool to educate, as a tool to inspire, and for ultimately for bringing communities together for healing. And when we use the art, and we've had conversations and have done school assemblies, in primary schools, and you would imagine, like, I mean, how in the world would you talk about quantum physics and all of this? And with art, we can have, intelligent conversations with children to learn how to tap into their greatness, their heart, and from a very early age, help them recognize that, the heart is so much more than just a pump. There's many dimensions to it, and to cultivate that sense of empowerment at an early age. Um, Additionally, the way that the rad art is designed is that there's many opportunities for, musicians and artists, social influencers to become part of this conversation. So to help further disseminate this message, to focus and create a new conversation, and to help a large number of people to tune into a particular frequency all at the same time, you'd see radical shift in the global consciousness, radical shift. And so all of this is really what I call the discovery phase. Help people discover this new perspective of individual and yet our connection to wholeness. Then I would say, look, then we get into the dream phase, where bringing people together, having these conversations, leveraging the arts, but then also including opportunities for people to share how they envision using this perspective in their communities, in their sphere of influence, in their networks, and their, just as how do they envision the world with this perspective. That then, when we bring all that information together, then we move to that next phase where it's design, where we can have similar events, but now we're engaging with the decision makers, corporate executives and CEOs and people with of influence and of financial means, to bring this information, say, okay, this is how we can, create new systems that are working smarter, more efficiently, based on what we now understand is truth about who we are and what we are. And then finally, we then deploy. and we can create new pilots, new programs. We can deliver a variety of different programs, not only to help support the systems that are already in place, but we can also begin creating the pilots of what community structures can look like for the future, because ultimately we need to start shifting in a new direction.
So I want to give enough time to jump into some of those programs and the opportunities for education that you have coming up, because I think a lot of folks here are going to be interested in that. We have had a couple of questions come in from those who are here live, so I wonder if we can touch on some of those first. And for those of you who are here watching live, if you have another question, now's your chance, pop it in the Q&A box. So I saw Connie's question come in first, and she's asking, do you believe your connection to heart changed because of your surgery? Did it open a connection in some way?
Yes. I mean, ultimately, I believe it did. Um, you know, I can, there's really there's many ways to answer this, but I mean, my head versus my heart. But ultimately, I feel my heart surgery was a real blessing. It boot me off that hamster wheel that I found myself on. I mean, I was in that 50% of residents. I was burned out when I just as I was first starting, and I look back now and I recognized it. And so the heart surgery, really created the environment um, to help me find my heart, in both scientific, but also in a deeper human, spiritual, whatever you want to call it, way. Um, and it certainly is, kind of ironic in a way, because when I look back at life, as a radiologist, and then this heart surgery, and now here I am talking about energy, and to help people understand energy, the heart plays a pivotal role. you know it um it kind of, I believe in the power of story and the medical narrative to engage with people. So this creates such a beautiful, natural kind of system to engage and have conversations, and to share, my story of heart, and perhaps can help people learn more about their own heart. Um, so the surgery opened my eyes and forced me, really. I don't know. I don't know if where I would be, to be honest, if I if I didn't. And I didn't mention this earlier, but my diagnosis of the heart condition came about through a random assault. I was assaulted and put into the hospital. And so sometimes it's hard to make sense of things, and we might, look at events and say, oh my God, why is life, doing this to me? But I have a true belief that, things happen for us, and as part of learning more about the heart, and tuning into it, and not reacting to life, but being with it and responding with life, that's where growth comes from. And we are able to identify where the opportunity is, what have we learned, and how does this make sense in my story, because we all are living a story, we're all in it. And we're all designed to thrive, and I have a belief that the heart can lead us to our full potential.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm gonna a little aside. I resonate so much with that. Almost 10 years ago now, I had a brain injury, and it was like a fluke accident, not something that was expected in my life. And for, the first little while, I was like, why did this happen? But exactly what you said, it ended up being the biggest blessing for me, because I changed so much about my perspective and my ability to connect and ask for help, and all of these places of learning that I really did need in my life. So not that I would wish a brain injury or open heart surgery or anything like that on anyone, but it really can be this beautiful opportunity to have that push into growth and to find the new and the next thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing. And there's millions of people who are finding this, and finding their hearts. It's a very exciting time.
So the next question I have here, as you were going through this journey, and as you say, finding your heart, learning more about coherence and energy and connection, was there any moment in particular that stands out to you as an aha moment where just like something big clicked for you?
Yes, yeah. One moment in particular, I mean, I was it was in India and chatting with a Swami. We were in the Himalayas, and so Swami, a spiritual practitioner, and I was just astonished by the knowledge of physics and the knowledge of science, and later found out this individual was actually had formal education in physics. And thinking about this, there is this moment where I began to understand that, as Einstein said, everything is energy. And the more that we begin to understand energy, the more we begin to understand that emotions and thoughts are also forms of energy. So hence, the greater understanding and mastering of energy, the more we can use our thoughts and emotions as tools for health and wellness. And that was, for me, it was a big light bulb moment. Um, Definitely. And I would also, I would also say the other thing I didn't mention as well is, about within days of the same week that I found out that I was requiring open heart surgery, a few days before that, I had bought my very first guitar. And music was really big part of my whole healing process. And the more the more that I learned, and the more I connected with my heart, the more I was writing and expressing myself in new ways. And it was just kind of this interesting time. um, but all of this was sparked, this impetus of getting a guitar and wanting to learn music came from a moment, I was at at a music concert. And I recall this concert very, in detail, because, I feel like that was the moment. If there was ever this, people talk about waking up their kundalini, and sparking something, I'd feel like there was this moment where the music took me to another place. I mean, I was in another dimension and really connecting with something that, from that point on, I would say my life has never been the same. And just saw life differently, wanted to experience it differently. And then things just started to happen. And here we are today.
Amazing. So let's jump into talking about some of the offerings that you have ongoing and specifically coming up, because I do think some of our members here would be interested in some of this learning. So we had spoken again just before we went live about some free options that you have on your website in order to join this online community learning about heart coherence. So are you able to talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So I want to share that currently, Monday to Friday, we provide free heart coherence sessions. And there's a community starting to come together from all, around the world, practicing heart coherence. And it's from 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's very simple. Essentially, I'll help guide people into coherence for about 5-10 minutes. And then people can stay for as long or as little as they like. And it's just a space where people come together, dedicated to their own self-care and the love of common humanity. So there's a link on our website in the menu. It's called Live Sessions, that you can basically access this link, and you'll receive everything you need to join these calls. You'll receive the link. You'll even receive a short video that explains this heart coherence protocol. And it also provides you a link with an app from HeartMath, the Global Coherence app, which allows you to track your own heart coherence. And you can join our groups. So when you're practicing, you could also, be part of that global heartbeat that we're cultivating. So that's a free offering for people. They can join as little as long as they like. Um, and I also, what we're also starting very shortly to put on monthly rad rounds where we will connect as a community to learn and share with each other. And it's all about learning more about connection and what is happening in the world right now that's creating more connection in our world. So that's something that I invite everybody to be a part of, and you can keep track of all these kind of new things happening by signing up on our website, and really just becoming part of a community that believes in coherence and the need for compassion in our world.
Sophia, I just want to say I do see your question. Can we have the links, please? Of course. I will get this replay up this afternoon, and we'll include all of those links in the description as well, so you can access these things today. Dr. Abrams, I saw you were recently profiled in CanFit Pro magazine as one, I think it was one of their 30 courageous Canadians. Is that what they called it? Making a difference. So congratulations on that. That must feel good for the work that you're doing. But I know that you specifically have a CanFit Pro event coming up soon as well. So did you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So this year is the 30th anniversary of CanFit Pro, and they hold an annual global conference in Toronto. And so for this year, I will be doing two things. I'll be doing a panel discussion around mental health, men, and positive masculinity, which is open to attendees. But I'm also involved in a keynote address for Good Life, which is part of their Leadership Day in Excellence. That's going to help kick off this event, and it will be attended by the top 150 executives at Good Life, and we're going to be talking about the science of heart, leading with heart, authentic leadership, and a new paradigm for social inclusivity. And in this conversation, I'll be sharing my thoughts and my belief that together Canada can become a nation of excellence in the science of heart, the science of compassion, and we can, again, leveraging the power of the arts, we can galvanize the hearts and minds of a global community and begin, sharing, conversations and practices around compassion and coherence to ultimately begin bringing communities together and stitching the social fabric together. So that's really really excited about, and this creates a lot of opportunity um, for clinicians of all areas of expertise. Going back to your question of how everybody, nutritionists, can become empowered with this knowledge and become part of this movement and a new approach to healing and creating deep connection, again, not just at the local level, but now part of the global level. And again, just to share, I didn't mention earlier, but having this platform is essential so that clinicians not only have the opportunity to use it with a client, but it's a referral base where you can send now people to our resources so that they can take a deeper dive if they want, and they can become part of this community. And together we will begin to witness this emergence of a global heartbeat, a global heart stream of energy that's created by compassion for self and others. And so it's a really excited.
I have a question here from Angela. How do we join the CanFit Pro event? She's a certified heart math coach and loves running coherence programs on our frequency devices regularly to align hearts. So this is obviously a topic that she resonates with a lot. So how would she go about joining that CanFit Pro event?
Well, I know that there are tickets still available, and I think there's there's like a trade show component to it. I believe is free for 2 days, and then if you want to attend the programs and sessions, then I believe there are tickets on sale. And I'm happy I can share with you, Veronica, the link. And so if anyone is interested, they can tune in to the
Yeah,
conference.
that would be wonderful. I saw in the comment too, Jessica, I just want to highlight your comment here. She said she loves that topic, and that we need more men in mental health. And I just want to echo that as well. I think that is such an important topic that you're speaking on, and something that historically has not gotten enough attention. So I think that is a really, really valuable thing for you to speak about at this conference.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I agree. Yeah, there has to be a shift in mindset amongst the men. Yeah.
Absolutely. So then the last thing is, you touched on a couple of times this certification program that you offer for folks who do want to jump in, dive in a little deeper into some sort of energy certification. So did you want to give a little more details about what that certification entails?
Absolutely. So the certification, as I said, we go through the 4 phases of looking at energy from a new perspective, which then helps you understand yourself as an energetic being. We learn how to energize, we practice, we learn how to synergize and create physiologic coupling, and ultimately how that now reframes how we emerge realigned with this perspective. And this curriculum is based on what the physicians are receiving in their conferences and CME workshops. And so we've created a variety of different versions, one of which is for general population. So we're going to offer actually on October 14th and 15th, over 2 days, we're going to hold a workshop. It's a 2 half-day workshop, so 3 hours in the morning for each day, that will be delivered virtually, that people can sign up for and get their certification. The certification is going basically on our website. There's an archive with everyone who individuals as well as clinics or corporations that have gone through our certification. So there's this is something that can be used on resumes or acronyms at the end of a person's names, to basically show people your values, and that this is now kind of woven into the ethos of your practice and your approach to healing. So I invite people to that. And just to share for your community, we're happy to offer a 50% discount code for this event. And to share, the way that the social impact works is that these programs and the revenue streams that we create from these healings help us deliver these programs to communities in need, schools, and as well the research that we initially talked about. So we have programs, and just to clarify, for general population, but we also have programs obviously for practitioners like yourself. So this is what we're going to be hosting for the 14th and 15th. And in fact, a lot of it's also for like naturopathic doctors who are already kind of in this stream of thought, so we can take a bit of a deeper dive into energy and quantum physics, things that I may not be able to provide, if to those who may not already be kind of in this frame of mind.
Got it. I do want to share, so those who are watching and might be curious, the cost for this 2-day conference regularly is only $450, which I think is already a very reasonable price for what you'll be getting. But with the 50% discount, that's just $225. So I don't know that there's many certifications that you can get for just a couple of $100. So I put the email address that you gave us up in the chat for everyone. That's the email to connect with if you're interested in that certification with the 50% discount. And of course, we'll include that with the replay in our network as well, if you want to come back to that a little bit later, because it isn't until October. So it doesn't have to be immediately today, but we'll have that up on the replay as well.
Amazing. Thank you.
All right. Is there anything else that you want to share about that, Dr. Abrams?
I I'm just so, I mean, so grateful to be able to share this message with you and your community. And I think when people who are already tuned in to, understanding that energy is something real, we might not be able to see it, um, but when we experience it for ourselves, it's so infectious. And I'm very optimistic for what's around the corner on the horizon, where we can, as practitioners of well-being, can embrace this new perspective. With the power of the arts, this has something that can really make a big change. And I really look forward to, as a community, we can connect, unite with this vision, and a broader understanding. I think I'm really excited to embark on this journey with you and your community. And I hope that people, I invite you to join, sign up, follow us. There's things on the horizon that I think, can really move the needle, when we talk about, let's start engaging with, conversations that lead to real tactical, practical applications, for compassion, kindness, and ultimately raising coherence within ourselves and each other.
Thank you, Dr. Abrams. I totally agree with you. I think you being here has been very valuable for this community, and everything that you've shared and all of the other resources that you have to share as well. But for us as holistic nutritionists and more heart-centered healers, as you might say, we are at this very unique tipping point sort of moment where these ideas are being more accepted and better understood by a wider range of individuals. And I think it's just such an honor for all of us to be able to be on the front lines moving forward with such an important transformation for, as you said, all of humanity.
Thank you. And Veronica, just to echo what you said, I think you nailed something really important, that, holistic nutritionists and other, clinicians can take they're on the front line of this work. You're already there. And now I believe that once this platform, is made available, this now becomes something that, even, no matter what position you hold, you heal the healers, you heal the physicians, you help them. You are part of this process. You are the front line and creating the real change in the world, and help us break this we're in an unfortunate system of reactive health, yet you're playing the biggest role in creating a proactive approach to health, and can help break these cycles. So I'm, again, it's just adding to the excitement of what we can do together.
Thank you, Dr. Abrams. I really appreciate you being here today and sharing this time with us. Thank you to everyone who joined us live, and for those who are on the replay and made it all the way to the end, thank you as well. As I said, I will get this replay up this afternoon. We'll include all of those different links to the different resources so you all can access them. This was a great hour. So again, I just really appreciate you being here and sharing this time and your knowledge.
Thank you so much. Wonderful to be with you. Thank you.
All right, take care, everyone. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.